shit.
Beirut, 1963. The Lebanese capital is referred to as the Paris of the Middle East, a place where Arab and European cultures meet. Here, intelligentsia and bohemians from all over the world come together in search of happiness and adventure. A young geologist by the name of Samuel Reeves arrives and gets a job at an oil company. Samuel isn't what you would call a workaholic. At the end of each shift, he heads downtown, quickly establishing himself as a regular at the local restaurants and nightclubs. One day, Samuel makes eye contact with a woman dancing on stage. Patricia, a charming girl from London, had just graduated with a degree in theater design and had come to Beirut as a step into the unknown. Dancing at the club was a temporary solution that nevertheless would forever change her life. Patricia didn't even try to resist Samuel's advances. His exotic Chinese-Hawaiian appearance and affinity for adventure and soft drugs would have won over any girl in the wake of the hippie movement. 3 months later, the two got married in Hawaii and were leading a comfortable, carefree life. In early autumn of 1964, the couple became a family of 3. Samuel named their newborn baby boy after his brother, Henry Keanu Reeves, whose middle name had been inherited from their great-great-uncle Kauahielu, and means cool breeze from the mountains. But their idyllic life didn't last long. 2 years later, right after the birth of their second child, Kim, Samuel left the family. By that time, he was already addicted to hard drugs and couldn't maintain any kind of relationship. Keanu's cousin remembers those days like this. My aunt had outgrown her hippie phase, but my uncle, unfortunately, had not. Samuel never changed over the years. He was picked up in 1994 for trafficking heroin and sentenced to 10 years in prison. But let's go back to 1967. Patricia, now alone and with 2 children in tow, moved to Australia for a year before briefly settling in New York. Keanu was 6 when his mother got married for the second time. Her new husband was director Paul Aaron. The couple decided that New York wasn't the best place to raise children and moved to Toronto. Drawing upon her education as a designer and her love for fashion, Patricia began her career as a costume designer and quickly gained a following after creating outfits for Emmylou Harris, Dolly Parton, and David Bowie. Unfortunately, her second marriage was even shorter than the first. Before they could even celebrate their second wedding anniversary, Paul abandoned his family. Patricia was devastated. Now up to her neck in work with 2 kids and no support, she fell apart. It didn't help that the doctors had recently diagnosed Keanu and Kim with dyslexia, a condition that Patricia had also struggled with. Fortunately, proper care and training allowed the children to quickly overcome their learning disability. Keanu soon found himself with another stepfather. Patricia's third husband was rock promoter Robert Miller. In 1976, the couple welcomed another child into the world. Kim and Keanu's new half-sister was named Karina. By this time, 12-year-old Keanu had found his first serious hobby. In keeping with stereotypes about Canada, where they were now living, the boy had fallen in love with hockey. He dreamt of becoming a professional player, and what started as a hobby quickly became a passion. Keanu's grades began to drop. Things weren't going well at school. His family moved around a lot, which meant he was always the new kid. At age 13, Keanu added acting to his extracurricular activities. He owed this new interest to his former stepfather, Paul Aaron, who still stayed in touch with the family and often invited the teenager to Los Angeles. There, he would take Keanu to the sets of movies like A Different Story, The Miracle Worker, and A Force of One.
A Force of One.
He hears the silence. He sees the darkness.
Sure, he was having a hard time at school, but at the same time, Keanu was the most valuable player on his hockey team. His first job was also related to hockey. Keanu stayed after practice at the stadium and sharpened the skates for all the other players. When he turned 16, he got a job at the Pastissimo restaurant making over 100 pounds of pasta a day. Reeves switched schools dozens of times, dropped out of several theater studios, and learned what he thought was the technique of method acting. Successful auditions became his first real achievements. The production of WolfBoy can safely be considered Keanu's debut. This insanely bizarre homoerotic play made quite a splash in Toronto's gay community. According to the plot, an innocent boy ends up in a psychiatric hospital and falls in love with his roommate who thinks he's a wolf. Sure, it's no Macbeth, but everyone knew what they were getting into. Director John Palmer recalled it this way: "One of the most gorgeous kids anyone's ever seen in white shorts. And we oiled them. What do you want for $10? The promotional photo shoot for the play became no less popular than the production itself. These photos are all the remains of the extravagant start of Keanu's career. But the play gave him a chance to get on TV in 1984. He debuted in small roles in series like Hangin' In,
Hey, where do you keep the towels? Pete said we could use a shower.
Night Heat,
Hang in there, kid. Please.
and Comedy Factor. These short scenes, usually consisting of just one line, paved the way for Keanu to appear in commercials for Coca-Cola.
Great race. Who's your coach?
My dad.
And Kellogg's Corn Flakes, which he received his first serious paychecks. I used to live my life out of a basket. I had this killer Kellogg's commercial once, made tons of money, and I cashed the check and put all of the cash in a basket. The actor's 19th birthday marked a turning point.
Right, go ahead. Way to go!
Nickelodeon's Going Great, hosted by Keanu, was a great fit for him. But the show about amazing and talented kids received the channel's worst ever ratings, and it was promptly canceled.
Guess it's back to my training.
The silver lining was that Keanu became acquainted with director Steven Stern, who noticed the young man's talent and gave him the script for a film called Young Again, and tells him to get ready for auditions. When Stern returned to Los Angeles, he met with Disney executives Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg. The idea of bringing in an unknown actor to play the leading role was not well received. The director then personally paid for Keanu's plane ticket and brought him to the Disney offices for an audition. The callback never came. The young man who had come to conquer Hollywood didn't wait for an answer and went home.
I hope something gets out there that is magic. And if not, I'll just be sad and cry.
The next sign from above was an audition that Keanu heard about in both his acting and hockey communities. The sport drama, Youngblood, featuring rising stars Patrick Swayze and Rob Lowe. This was the perfect opportunity to make a name for himself on the big screen. He landed the role 2 weeks before his 20th birthday. It was the greatest birthday gift ever, a combination of two of his favorite things to do.
She do it to me last year, man.
She do it to me last night, huh?
While it was just a small supporting role, nothing more than background appearances and a couple of standard lines, it paved Keanu's way to the world of movies.
That man is fucking an animal.
One of Youngblood's hallmarks is its intense scenes on the ice. In addition to his own shots, Keanu often played the backs of Swayze and Lowe, dragging the cameraman behind him in a wheelchair. Critics praised the film's crew's impressive work, and although no one mentioned Reeves, he didn't mind because he immediately landed another role in a feature film.
I'm sick of playing this game. I'm not playing it anymore. From now on, I'm a free agent. Look out, girls.
In the sports drama Flying, Keanu took on a leading role for the first time in his career as the film's heartthrob. Flying was the next step on the road to fame, but now it was time to take the elevator. In late 1994, Steven Stern finally convinced Disney executives to approve Reeves. The filming of Young Again would be taking place in Los Angeles, and Keanu saw this as an excellent reason to finally leave his parents' house and chase his dreams. I was tired of playing the best friend, thug number one, and the tall guy. There was no room for me as an actor in Canada. So I get in the car, pick up my girlfriend, and we drive off for Hollywood. Hey, do you like our work? Let us know with your like and comment. Push that subscribe button and share with your friends. If you want to support the project financially, become our sponsor on Patreon or YouTube sponsorship. Thank you. Let's move on. Paul Aaron didn't just take the young man into his home. He introduced him to his future agent and manager. The movie mecca of the world greeted Keanu with open arms, at least in part because he already had what half of this town spends years searching for.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Young Again didn't do well, but Reeves' performance is praised by several critics.
She looks familiar. I feel like I've seen her before.
You see? I told you he was normal.
The plot tells of a successful but unhappy businessman who dreams of being young again and finally gets the opportunity.
Look at me. I'm a kid. I'm a kid.
Keanu made an impression on all of the casting managers in Hollywood with his on-screen embodiment of the joys of youth. The actor was invited to all sorts of comedy and soap opera auditions, but he longed for a serious project. It's hard to imagine what his agent must have felt when Reeves turned down Oliver Stone himself. The director wanted him to play the leading role in Platoon. Stone later recalled that the actor's decision had been based on his own pacifism and a reluctance to act in a movie about weapons. The film went on to win 4 Oscars, and Keanu's replacement, Charlie Sheen, was nominated for Best Actor. Not surprisingly, after rejecting such a successful project, the big-time offers stopped coming in to Reeves' agent, leaving Keanu to act in several fairly forgettable projects. Among them were the dramas Under the Influence, for which he received positive critical acclaim.
Couldn't, Ed. He was sick.
Yeah, and now he's dead. And he wouldn't be if I just...
Eddie, come on.
Get out of
Give
here.
me the gun. Give me the gun.
And River's Edge, long considered to be his best role.
So now we get married, right?
No. Let's get stoned instead.
Oh, that'd be great.
This was followed by the thriller The Brotherhood of Justice
Brotherhood in silence. Brotherhood in silence.
and the crime drama Act of Vengeance. The director of Act of Vengeance, John McKenzie, became the first person, but not the last, to openly disparage Keanu's work. In one interview, he complained about the actor's awkward clumsiness on camera and called him an upstart. Most of all, the director was angered by Keanu's defiant behavior off-screen.
Shows I was meant for something special.
Despite the criticism, Keanu continued to churn out films at an incredible rate. He featured in 8 different projects in 1986 alone, the last of which was the musical Babes in Toyland, where he starred alongside Drew Barrymore.
Toymaster, we've got to talk to you.
Really, sir, for the sake of Toyland.
Well, yes, I'm listening.
But this film also flopped. Given that it was shot in Munich in just 33 days, director Clive Donner simply didn't have the time to adapt Victor Herbert's operetta. But fans got to hear Keanu sing for the first time.
I come from
C-I-N-C-I-N-N-A-T, Cincinnati,
The best
town in Ohio, USA.
The busy year allowed the actor to move out of his stepfather's place and swap out his ancient Volvo for a motorcycle. But he didn't let the money go to his head. Keanu wasn't drawn to the nightlife of Los Angeles. He preferred long motorcycle rides at night and trips to bookstores, where he bought almost everything on the shelves. Meanwhile, Keanu's image for roles as an attractive teenager became even stronger, despite the fact that he was already 23. This image won him parts in films such as Permanent Record.
But, could you allow me to be honest with you?
No, because you're going to start complaining about doing this particular show, and that's not up for discussion, Chris.
The Night Before,
Are we going to talk, or are we gonna rock?
White guy.
and The Prince of Pennsylvania. Keanu began to dread being typecast after portraying 10 different teenagers on screen. To make matters worse, his 24th birthday was fast approaching, and it was starting to show in his appearance. Reeves saw the opportunity to act in a costumed historical production of Dangerous Liaisons as his chance to break free of the eternal schoolboy image and finally be taken seriously as an actor.
Oh, it's sublime, don't you find?
Plus, his fellow co-stars were of a completely different caliber than anyone he had worked with previously. Actors like John Malkovich, Michelle Pfeiffer, and newcomer Uma Thurman. Despite the fact that many consider the idea of casting a teen icon in a serious drama to be a risky gamble, director Stephen Frears completely trusted Keanu.
I don't know how I can ever repay you.
Upon the film's release, Reeves was considered one of the main problems, a weak link and an out-of-place experiment.
Somehow, quite a different tone of voice.
Rumors surfaced about how Frears had wasted hours on set trying to get Keanu to cry for a scene. Despite the criticism, Keanu was proud of the challenges he overcame and referred to this role as a turning point in his career. Dangerous Liaisons did, in fact, allow him to stop playing schoolboys. By the way, it was after his audition for the film that Keanu got into one of his most famous accidents.
The one that I think that you're talking about is a,
Well, pick your favorite injury.
Oh, okay.
Whatever you...
The years that followed Keanu's move to Los Angeles were marked by a passion that grew into an obsession. He began to collect motorcycles, and while simply riding them is extreme enough in itself, Keanu truly threw caution to the wind. One of his favorite ways to have fun was to take off his helmet, turn off his headlights, and ride around the Hollywood Hills all night.
So I'm sorry, I was on a motorcycle, I was in Topanga Canyon, I was going really fast, didn't know the road, and there was a hairpin turn. I hit the mountain, I had trauma, a couple of broken ribs, etc., and went to the hospital, and they took the blood out, and then sewed up my spleen.
He also ended up with a scar from his sternum to his navel. And no, the actor didn't learn his lesson. He continued to risk his life and get into accidents. We'll come back to this point several times.
Well, I've had some cool crashes. I have. I mean, they're cool because I'm here, not there. You know what I mean?
The following year, Keanu got into, no, not an accident, the cast of Parenthood, a comedy with Diane West and Steve Martin in the lead roles.
Sweet Jesus! What are you doing? Are you joining the Marines?
Even in those days, director Ron Howard was no slouch in Hollywood, albeit not as iconic as he is today, which meant that working under him was both a challenge and an excellent opportunity for Keanu to express himself in a major project.
Well,
Parenthood became a hit at the box office and was nominated for 2 Oscars.
I need to see.
No, not in...
It wasn't a huge merit for Keanu, but not receiving negative criticism was enough to earn him some credibility among his colleagues.
Chad. Thanks.
Ron Howard advised director Lawrence Kasdan to cast Keanu in his black comedy I Love You to Death, where he played a memorable role and made a friend.
So it's generally not considered a very good idea to take a taxi to the scene of a crime.
Hey, man, look. Be cool, okay?
Reeves and River Phoenix became instant buddies, and would star together again a year later, but we'll come back to that.
What should we drink to?
Taking on the character of a drug-addicted criminal became one of the most extraordinary experiences of the actor's career. Every scene he appears in is both memorable and shocking. In just a year, Reeves managed to dramatically change his attitude towards himself, revealing his talent in a completely different way. All the more surprising was the release of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Bill S. Preston, Esquire. And Ted Theodore Logan.
Don't think that Keanu had decided to go back to his teenage roles or that this was the offer of a lifetime. It was all much simpler than that. You see, Bill and Ted had been filmed back in 1987, but due to the De Laurentiis Entertainment Group going bankrupt, the movie was abandoned and being prepared for TV release. However, Nelson Entertainment bought the rights to the film a year later and released it in theaters in 1989.
Excellent!
To say that this was a good idea is like saying that the computer was a decent invention.
No way. No way.
Yes way, Ted!
The $10 million project brought in $40 million at the US box office, and at least half as much internationally. Roughly the same amount as the combined sales of home videos and all sorts of related merchandise.
Not bad.
Not to mention an animated series.
Excellent! Bill&Ted Bogus!
And a sequel. The film's release launched the first wave of widespread fame for Keanu Reeves. But he almost didn't play Ted.
Hello, San Dimas High!
The only reason he was cast was because the auditions of River Phoenix, Sean Penn, and Brendan Fraser were unsuccessful.
Be
do get better.
Sure, the modern viewer may find the movie to be a bit silly, but in the late 80s, nearly every publication wrote an article about the brilliant comedic talent of Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter in their caricature of youth of that time.
It's you.
Yeah, it's us. Who are we?
What more can be said other than this is a classic of American comedy? Keanu has stated that it was the role of his life, joking that his tombstone would one day read, "Here lies Keanu Reeves. He played Ted." Anyway, after the success of Bill and Ted, another project that Keanu had starred in a few years before his breakthrough finally hit the screens. Delayed for the same reason as Bill and Ted, Tune In Tomorrow was the first comedy of his career featuring him in the spotlight.
Oh, right. So who says romance is dead?
But this movie was doomed to remain in the shadow of his recent comedic success, just like the romantic comedy Life Underwater, released in 1989.
Hey, come on, wake up. Are you all right? Oh, Jesus, you must have had a night.
Featuring Sarah Jessica Parker as Reeves' lover, this television version of a popular American play skipped the theaters and went straight to TV.
She'll like you when she gets to know you.
That will never happen.
You really will, though. I'm very nice. I'm harmless.
Critics agreed that they would have preferred to see the pair on stage, deeming the TV movie mediocre and pointless.
Thank you.
And so, by the age of 25, Keanu had more than 20 projects under his belt. He was a rising star who had proven himself in many roles and showed no signs of stopping. The next challenge was to transform into an action hero. Reuniting with Patrick Swayze, only this time in the lead role, Keanu set to work on Catherine Bigelow's Point Break, which she co-wrote with her ex-husband, James Cameron. After beating out Charlie Sheen and Johnny Depp at the auditions, Keanu, along with Patrick Swayze and Lori Petty, began preparations for filming, although this time, it looked like what normal people would call vacation. The actors flew out to Hawaii, where they spent 2 months learning to surf. While Swayze had already tried his hand at catching waves a couple of times before, it was all Reeves could do to just stay up on the board. As for Petty, it was her first time seeing the ocean.
I've never seen the ocean before. Any ocean. I never thought it would affect me so much.
An exhausting 77 days of filming followed, during which Keanu discovered a new world of gunfights, chases, and brawls that would become an integral part of his career in the future.
Life sure has a sick sense of humor, doesn't it?
Interestingly, this scene was actually filmed during the day and subsequently blacked out in post-production due to the high costs of filming at night.
You don't need to see.
Yeah, right. Vision is highly overrated.
And the scene where Keanu jumps from a plane was even featured in an episode of Mythbusters. They rejected the possibility of a 90-second freefall.
You are crazy! Pull the fucking show! Why don't you pull it?
But still agreed that Johnny Utah could have had time to grab Bodie when he jumped out of the plane without a parachute.
We jumped out, 15 seconds later, he jumped, and right as we pulled our chute, he was like right next to us.
The only way it's gonna happen, my friend. Do it! I swear to God, I will! Do it, man!
The film was an instant hit in theaters, and despite cool reactions from critics, it earned about $100 million at the box office. It's no secret that 2015 saw a remake of the movie that didn't live up to its predecessor.
They only live to get radical. They don't have any real understanding of the sea, so they'll never get the spiritual side of it.
But there is one film that surpassed the original in terms of ticket sales and fame. That film is The Fast and the Furious.
This is one of those times when you need to be very clear about what you say.
The creators have never admitted to it, but it's hard to deny the incredible similarities between these two movies, where one simply replaces surfing with racing.
Respect for my elders. Plain and simple.
Keanu, having transformed from a good-looking pretty boy into a young macho man, set out to explore new facets of his talent. This time, it was to work with Gus Van Sant on the adventure drama My Own Private Idaho.
You ready for a new day?
Van Sant had been dreaming of making this movie for several years. Named after a song by the B-52s, This script follows the lives of street hustler Mikey Waters and a wealthy young man named Scott Favor. Given the specific and rather provocative material, Gus was convinced that the only way to make the film was to cast unknown up-and-coming actors in the lead roles and invest his own money. But he really wanted to cast River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, well, that's obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredibly obvious.
Even though he knew that their agents would most likely not let them read the script, he still sent it anyway. One never made it to River. Keanu, however, received it and loved the script from its very first pages. Reeves then hopped on his motorcycle and rode across the country to River's home in Florida, hoping to personally persuade the actor to co-star in the film. Needless to say, it worked. Keanu convinced River to join the project, resulting in one of the most important films in the careers of both actors. During filming, the ensemble cast moved into Gus Van Sant's home, where the group partied every night until dawn, including music, alcohol, and drugs. The situation was a bit out of control, so the director moved out just to get some sleep once in a while.
What, you think I sell your body while you're asleep?
The star of the film was undoubtedly River Phoenix, whose skills and talent were on full display anytime the camera was rolling.
I've been on this road before. This is my road.
But with Keanu playing his first role as an anti-hero, it wouldn't have been possible.
It will impress them more when such a fuck-up like me turns good.
The actors both later agreed that they simply couldn't imagine doing even half the provocative scenes with anyone else on Earth. We made a kind of brother pact. It could have been like a bad dream, a dream that never follows through because no one commits, but we forced ourselves into it. We said, okay, I'll do it if you do it. I won't do it if you don't. We shook hands. That was it. We're so immersed in their work that River personally rewrote this scene and convinced the director to shoot his version.
I really want to kiss you, man. Good night, man.
Of course, besides its sexual subject matter, My Own Private Idaho also touches on the topic of drugs. His role in the film caused Keanu to admit that he had tried hashish and LSD in grade school, and had regularly, though not often, used drugs since moving to Hollywood. These revelations came as a result of psychotropic substances being as commonplace on set as coffee. Even though Keanu claimed that he easily quit after filming, witnesses said that he was often high during his subsequent work on the sequel to Bill&Ted. The experience was even more harmful to River Phoenix. Unable to overcome the drug addiction he had acquired on the set of My Own Private Idaho, 3 years later, on October 31st, 1993. River died from an overdose of heroin and cocaine. He had been on a 2-day bender with members of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and passed away in front of his younger brother Joaquin.
Yeah.
But back to 1991. After 3 successful projects in a row, another major step in Keanu's career awaited him.
Count me.
In the 1990s, one of the greatest directors in the history of cinema, Francis Ford Coppola, decided to fulfill an old dream. To film Bram Stoker's novel Dracula, so close to the source material that he even called the picture Bram Stoker's Dracula.
There were so many of them, but no one ever did the book. And I knew what the book was because I read the book.
Winona Ryder was the first to join the cast after winning the directors over. Having found his muse, Coppola built the film around her, and the rest of the actors were selected from a list that Winona called the Dream Ensemble. The chart included Anthony Hopkins, Gary Oldman, Richard Grant, and Keanu Reeves.
But you'll have to leave Transylvania immediately. Opportunities such as this come but once in a lifetime.
Yes, of course, sir.
Coppola is also known for being a nightmare to work with. Keanu got a taste of this even at the audition.
Should be many strange things.
I've seen many strange things already.
The director wasn't shy about the fact that he wasn't familiar with Reeves' work or that he found the audition unimpressive. After casting was completed, he told Keanu that he was only giving him the role because he needed an actor for the teenage audience. Despite the rough start to their working relationship, Keanu held the director in high regard, and so he treated Francis with reverence and awe.
As if I have a part to play in a story that is not known to me.
Before filming, the director gathered the entire cast in a room and made them read the entire Dracula novel, aloud, in turns. Anthony Hopkins recalled that it took them 2 days.
Here occurs the shocking and frightening history of the wild berserker Prince Dracula.
Many years later, Keanu admitted that he was dissatisfied with his work as Jonathan Harker. Taking on a huge number of projects with no breaks had exhausted him. This shone through in the final result. But Reeves slightly exaggerated his acting failure. Sure, it was hard for the audience to see their beloved Ted as a young lawyer of the late 19th century, but the performance was far from inadequate.
Doctor, you must understand. I doubted everything. Even my mind.
As for Coppola's famously exaggerated approach to filming, there are just a few facts worth mentioning. For example, to add naturalism to the wedding scene, the director invited a real priest, so technically, Keanu and Winona Ryder were actually married. This fact wasn't known at first. It was revealed in the director's commentary in the film's DVD extra features. So this scene can basically be considered a wedding video directed by Francis Ford Coppola. The director's love for all kinds of tricks is also well known, something Reeves got to experience firsthand.
They're going back to an old school of filmmaking. Old school in the sense of that, Terminator 2 is all computer graphics, and this is like, ropes and mirrors and, that kind of hocus pocus, which is delightful.
This also applies to the scenes with Gary Oldman, and of course, the scenes of Harker being seduced by 3 brides. The world premiere of Dracula took place on September 13th, 1992. The film was met with widespread acclaim, something a horror movie hadn't enjoyed in quite a long time. Keanu finally took some time off. After filming wrapped in January, he didn't return to work until almost the end of the year. After some much-needed R&R, he accepted an offer from Alex Winter to act in the black comedy B-movie Freaked.
Hey, you freak! I am Ortiz, the dog boy, leader of the freaks.
The two had remained friends since working together on Bill and Ted, so the actor was happy to accept a cameo role in Alex's debut as a director and a screenwriter. In exchange, Winter gave Keanu the opportunity to chase a squirrel
Squirrel!
and run from eyeballs with machine guns.
You don't know about Elijah's giant Rasta eyeballs with machine guns.
Just like Rick said.
The next film is the exact opposite of the previous one. Keanu played Don John in an adaptation of Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. Director Kenneth Branagh assembled quite an impressive cast for the project. Besides himself, the main roles were played by Michael Keaton, Emma Thompson, Kate Beckinsale, and Denzel Washington.
My lord and brother, God save you.
Good evening, brother.
This light, casual adaptation was warmly received by audiences and was nominated for a Palme d'Or and a Golden Globe.
I am not of many words, but I thank you.
Reeves also received his first nomination. Unfortunately, it was a Razzie for Worst Supporting Actor. It was, in fact, a very hurtful experience, because the only points of criticism the film received were the performances of Reeves and Michael Keaton. Fortunately, Hollywood actors aren't all that bothered by the Golden Raspberry Awards. Reeves got another opportunity to prove his worth by reuniting with Gus Van Sant to work on the adaptation of Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. But the movie turned out to be a sad, ironic joke. In fact, it was an entire collection of bad jokes. The cast was actually quite respectable and included the likes of Uma Thurman, Lorraine Bracco, and John Hurt. But it was Keanu who turned out to be the only bright spot of the film. Uma and Lorraine both received their respective Razzie nominations. The film itself was panned by critics, festival goers, and fans of River Phoenix, whose few scenes didn't make the final cut. After his death, Van Sant dedicated the film to his memory. But let's digress to another European director, the pioneer of the new wave, Bernardo Bertolucci. In late 1992, the director began working on the final installments of his so-called Oriental trilogy. Following The Last Emperor and The Sheltering Sky, the time had come to make Little Buddha, a story about Prince Siddhartha.
Buddha was born 2,500 years ago. in a small kingdom in ancient India.
The director traveled all over India and Nepal looking for the right actor. He offered the role to famous Bollywood star Rahul Roy. But it didn't work out. Rahul turned down the opportunity to make his Hollywood debut. In desperation, Bertolucci returned to the United States. A few months later, after watching My Own Private Idaho and accidentally stumbling upon an article about Keanu Reeves' Hawaiian roots, the director saw the actor's innocence and Asian beauty as perfect for the role of Buddha. Keanu was delighted by both the opportunity to work with the legendary director and by the script itself. I'm 29. Siddhartha was 29 when he began his quest. So I'm historically, traditionally in my life at the beginning of the quest for spirituality.
I am looking for freedom.
But as rude as it may sound, upon arriving in Nepal, it wasn't so much God Keanu was looking for as it was a bathroom. Coming to Kathmandu, you realize why America is so clean. There's shit everywhere in those medieval villages.
So that nothing Siddhartha might see in the city would upset or disturb him.
This story isn't befitting of the star status of our hero, but food poisoning and constant diarrhea were a huge problem for many members of the film crew. Although it did ultimately come in handy. The actor had to lose a lot of weight for the scene where Siddhartha meditates by the river. Well, the diarrhea combined with a diet of oranges and water certainly did the trick. After the film's release, the 14th Dalai Lama was pleased with what he saw, and had just one thing to say: the Buddha cannot be little. Of course, the film's true magic was revealed just 3 years later when, as if following the plot, a 4-year-old boy from Seattle was chosen as the reincarnation of Daesung Rinpoche, and sent to Nepal to be raised as a spiritual teacher. After returning from Nepal, Keanu desperately wanted to rest, but an upcoming role was looming on the horizon, so his plans were cancelled. Director Jan de Bont happened to be looking for an actor for his action movie, Speed. In contrast to the superhero type that was quite prevalent at the time, he needed a younger, sexier, more vulnerable man, which he felt he had found in Reeves. When I saw Keanu in the few action scenes he had in Point Break, I thought this was something he could really be good at.
Okay.
The actor himself wasn't particularly eager to return to this kind of movie genre. After reading the script, he was concerned about its similarities to Die Hard and the Bruce Willis-esque lines.
Oh, John, what the fuck are you doing? How the fuck did you get into this shit?
Tell me again, Harry. Why did I take this job?
Oh, come on. 30 more years of this, you get a tiny pension and a cheap gold watch.
Cool.
But fell in love with the rest of the story. The bus and the bomb? Fantastically fantastic. It was so silly I thought it could bomb, but with the right guy. And although 20th Century Fox was delighted that Reeves was joining the project, the producer didn't consider Keanu a real star and demanded that the director choose a famous actress to be his on-screen counterpart. But de Bont didn't listen and held auditions to find the right woman who could not only look good on camera. You cannot look at it that way. You have to find the perfect combination. I want someone who's going to drive a bus and you can believe it. Not a beautiful face, but a strong, feisty woman. He found everything he was looking for in Sandra Bullock, who had been bouncing from one support role to the next in nothing but low-budget movies. Although she and Keanu looked great at the script read-throughs, it took Fox 2 months to come around. Just 2 weeks before the start of filming, they finally gave her the nod to play Annie.
You are a good, kind man. One day people will write songs about you.
There's a reason for the chemistry we see in the movie. Sandra recalled how Keanu would constantly help her, taking the young, inexperienced actress under his wing. He was so great to work with because he didn't have to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning for my rehearsal shot, but he walked out of the trailer and there he was, and he said, "I just waited because I knew you needed me for that scene." And that's rare. People go crazy over him, and they have every reason to, because he's good looking on the inside too.
Ma'am, you did very well. Actually, you were incredible.
She also recently admitted that she had a crush on Keanu during filming.
It was hard. It was really, it was hard for me to really be serious. Like, he would look at me and I'd be like,
In the early days on set, Jan de Bont noticed that Reeves wasn't really into the project and wasn't giving himself to the process. Instead of arguing about it, de Bont came up with a way to really entice the actor. Before this scene, he approached Keanu and told him that he would be driving the Jaguar himself.
We don't have to go so...
was a nice move, man.
The adrenaline rush was exactly what Keanu needed to lose himself in the scene. By the end of filming, he had done nearly 80% of his own stunts.
Comfort to you. We ain't got nothing to do with where you are, or where you've been, or where you're going. Comfort to you has got something to do with who you are, and how you love, and how you pain, and how you sorrow.
Remember, crazy, not stupid.
Sure, he may have put a couple of talented stunt doubles out of a job, but it helped him sincerely enjoy the process, which came through in the quality of his acting. After the release of Speed, Keanu began to be seen as an action hero. The incredible success of this summer blockbuster changed his financial situation forever. This bust brought Keanu to the so-called A-list of the highest paid actors in the world.
In 2 different interviews, Keanu told us he wasn't being offered many roles, and 3 different times he told us he's not often recognized in public. Well, Keanu, things are about to change.
But this kind of fame always has its downsides. Tabloids love all sorts of theories and juicy stories, and Keanu had become a goldmine for magazine editors around the world. For many years, there was a rumor in Hollywood that Keanu was homosexual due to the fact that he was rarely seen with women, was never in a serious relationship, and had always played a convincing gay man from the very beginning of his career. It got to the point that in 1994, a rumor started spreading that Keanu Reeves and media mogul David Geffen had secretly gotten married. According to one Italian magazine, they held a private ceremony on the coast of Mexico, where they also stayed for their honeymoon. Geffen's account statement and a convincing text were considered to be reliable evidence of this. So convincing that the story was quickly picked up by the media, first in Europe and then in America. Official representatives of David and Keanu denied the rumors. Later, a correspondent for Interview magazine asked Reeves directly if he was gay. Keanu replied, "No, but you never know what might happen." He then commented on the Geffen situation. "The press announced I was married to a man, the billionaire producer David Geffen. I'd heard this news when I was in Winnipeg, Canada during Hamlet rehearsals. There was a message from a friend Claire on my answering machine. She said, 'I've just heard you're married. Congratulations.' I never met David Geffen. It's a lie." Keanu's calmness and confidence made it easy for him to deal with these attacks, although it took quite a long time for the rumors to die down, especially considering that David was one of the first Hollywood stars to come out as gay. But without evidence to back it up, the story faded into oblivion. Keanu then stunned the public by turning down a role in Speed 2. At the time, it was like Bruce Willis turning down a sequel to Die Hard. But Keanu was determined to avoid getting typecast for the next 20 years. When the sequel finally came out, it was clear that he had made the right decision. But the same cannot be said for agreeing to replace Val Kilmer in the post-apocalyptic action movie Johnny Mnemonic.
This feels like a blown deal, man.
Although it couldn't be called an honest replacement, because the actor had received the script without it first going through his agency, which also represented Kilmer, avoiding a conflict of interest was impossible. Keanu had been given the script by friends who were aware of his love for screenwriter William Gibson, who had previously written the cult cyberpunk novel Neuromancer. Keanu was immediately on board with the idea, and although he was a more expensive option for the studio than Val, they replaced him.
Double cheese anchovies?
Johnny Mnemonic was a sad experience for Reeves. Many people called the film a low-budget knockoff of a big-budget movie, and working on the project became a living hell. With a $30 million budget, a first-time director, a screenplay whose author had no film experience and had withdrawn from the project, and a last-minute substitution of the main character, this movie was doomed to fail.
Question.
Yes.
You don't look like the kind of people I usually work for.
We are new at this.
No shit.
Robert Longo's inability to manage the film crew led to some of its members openly mocking the director. Whenever he would make a mistake, someone would start humming a song from The Wizard of Oz.
I would dance and be merry, life would be a ding-a-dairy if I only had a brain.
Needless to say, without at least an inkling of authority, the director completely lost control of the filming process. The obvious result was a box office failure and Keanu's second Golden Raspberry nomination, which served as a topping on the cake of criticism he received.
I want room service!
In May of 1995, the actor could open up the movie section of any magazine and learn a lot about himself, especially if one of his movies had recently come out.
You've got something better.
No, I don't.
The romantic drama, A Walk in the Clouds, is now almost a classic, which both Keanu and fans of the genre sincerely love. But in 1995, critics berated the film, and Reeves was once again nominated for yet another Razzie.
And I was gonna say something, but...
In all fairness, it's worth noting that the film broke even at the box office and won the Golden Globe for Best Original Score. A Walk in the Clouds wasn't the only thing to become famous for its music. In addition to riding motorcycles and reading, Keanu picked up a new hobby. He began playing bass in a rock band called Dogstar. The band was officially created in 1991 when Keanu met actor Robert Mailhouse. In 1994, the band began to play small gigs that consisted mostly of Keanu fans. But by early 1995, they were playing at the Belly Up in San Diego and at the Los Angeles Legion Hall. This was followed by a week-long tour in Japan, where Reeves is simply idolized. In September 1995, Dogstar was the opening act for Bon Jovi and David Bowie concerts. And in October, they went on a joint tour with Bon Jovi. Reeves became so engrossed in his musical career that he turned down several financially lucrative offers, and wouldn't answer questions about his acting career at the group's press conferences. To everyone's surprise, his next role was the low-budget crime comedy, Feeling Minnesota.
You want to avoid prison? Quit sticking up gas stations.
A commendable choice. In this film, Keanu managed to show his strengths. Even though the movie received negative criticism and had a mediocre showing at the box office, Keanu's performance was widely praised. Whether the role was worth it or not is unclear, because the actor admitted in subsequent interviews that his character's smoking habit in Feeling Minnesota had caused him to start smoking in real life. But for his co-star, Cameron Diaz, the erotic scenes were the biggest challenge. The actors had to perform in front of more than 30 people, and those scenes were how they first got to know each other. That was like, hi, my name's Cameron, let's fuck. Keanu also starred in another action film in 1996. The sci-fi thriller Chain Reaction featured performances by Morgan Freeman and Rachel Weisz, and is praiseworthy for its pacing and richness. But on the other hand, fans of the genre found the plot to be generic and weak.
You were right.
And given the working conditions that the actors had to deal with, one does start to wonder, why are we even doing this? Due to abnormally low temperatures, the project was frozen several times, literally and figuratively. Firefighters were even called to the set at one point, and they told the crew that they had to stop production. Keanu said that it was the hardest film he had ever worked on. To rub salt in the wound, he also received another nomination for a Golden Raspberry.
We learned something very important today. We found another way that didn't work. We need to keep our minds open, try again.
The only good thing to come out of the project was the foresight of the producers. Before filming this scene, they knew that Keanu would most likely ask to keep the bike for himself, so they let him pick one out in advance. Thus, a 76th edition Kawasaki KZ1000 was added to his collection. The following year, Keanu began simultaneously recording a Dogstar album and working on the film The Last Time I Committed Suicide, for which he put on an extra 30 pounds.
Sometimes a little distraction's a good thing.
The film tells the story that inspired Jack Kerouac to write his most famous book, On the Road. The success of this film can be summed up with two numbers, a $4 million budget and 46,000 in ticket sales. And that was totally fair. There's just one thing that can be considered regrettable. It was a very unusual role for Keanu that most simply missed.
Where'd you get all this cash from, anyway?
Robbed a bank. Kidding.
But a chance to once again demonstrate his talents came almost immediately. We're talking about a classic of modern cinema, the supernatural horror film, The Devil's Advocate.
I like to be in court. I didn't plea out a lot.
This film was a well-known Hollywood long-term project that had been in development for over 8 years. The film went into pre-production 3 times and was to be directed by Joel Schumacher, director of Batman Forever and A Time to Kill. But he left the project at the casting phase after disagreements with the studio. Taylor Hackford, who directed the magnificent film adaptation of Stephen King's Dolores Claiborne, stepped in as a replacement. It was Hackford who wanted to see Keanu in the leading role. The studio also saw him as a great candidate. The only problem was Al Pacino, who had turned down the project 5 times already. Warner Brothers had tried everything they could to get him interested in the role. They removed most of the special effects from the script and rewrote it several times until he liked it.
You write beautifully.
Later on, Pacino began to doubt his ability to embody his character on screen and suggested that he be replaced with Sean Connery or Robert Redford. An agreement was reached only after Reeves gave up part of his salary to accommodate Pacino's demands.
What can I say?
The final result that appeared on the big screen in October of 1997 was brilliant. But getting there was anything but smooth sailing. It all started with Al Pacino expressing his dissatisfaction with his co-star. On several occasions, he said that Keanu's acting was unimpressive, citing Johnny Depp, with whom he had previously worked in Donnie Brasco, as a better example. To Reeves' credit, he never responded to this criticism and continued to do his job. On set, the actors were constantly arguing with the director, who, in their opinion, was filming something completely different from what they had signed up for. They were embarrassed by the abundance of special effects, the disloyalty to the genre, and the director's inability to stick to the script.
A man's career, his reputation, his life is on the line. This is not a joke.
If you didn't already know how it turned out, you would think that the film would have been a disaster, but this production has become one of the greatest in the careers of 3 main characters.
Invigorating.
Charlize Theron, who consulted a psychotherapist for 3 months to help make her portrayal of schizophrenia more realistic, noted that it was Keanu who had played the most memorable role in the film. Keanu is a very underrated actor. His work is just phenomenal. I met him and I remember looking away and wondering, my God, he's got it all back there. I mean, just look into the guy's eyes and it's a wonderland of experiences. I think he's amazing, and not a lot of people know it.
Pack it up, baby. You need a drink.
Keanu really outdid himself as Kevin Lomax, and the minor details, like the costume getting darker as the film progresses, only worked because of who was in them.
I win! I win! I'm a lawyer! That's my job! That's what I do!
Scenes in luxurious places were filmed on location. Alex Cullen's house is located in the apartments of former US President Donald Trump.
Stop. Back up.
And the patio in John Milton's office was filmed on the 50th floor of the Continental Tower, although the water garden was added in post-production. But this shot was taken without using a green screen.
Holy shit.
Little different when you're looking down, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Despite the iconic legacy of The Devil's Advocate, it actually had a mediocre opening at the box office and received mixed reviews from critics. And while the film did turn a profit, its results at the award ceremony seemed like mockery. For example, Al Pacino was nominated for an MTV Movie Award for Best Villain, but lost to Mike Myers' Dr. Evil. The film's only win was a Saturn Award for Best Horror Film. The lack of recognition was offensive to everyone involved in the project. For Reeves, this wasn't the worst thing to happen that year. On May 27th, during another motorcycle ride, Keanu looked death straight in the face. At an intersection on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles, he flew into the oncoming lane and crashed into a car. The impact threw him about 30 feet before he landed on the pavement. He had a shattered right ankle and several broken teeth. But he was incredibly lucky for such a serious accident. Keanu later began having problems with his spine. Numerous accidents and years of playing hockey had taken their toll on his body. The diagnosis was so serious that doctors said that he could become totally paralyzed from the waist down. Yet, despite the risk, Keanu joined a project in which he needed to move more than he ever had before in a film. And so, just 1 month after spinal surgery, it was time for Reeves to learn the secret of martial arts.